I was quite impressed with the Moto G7 last time around, as it offered a very solid package with no significant compromises. The question is whether the G8 series can follow in those footsteps. Hey, I'm Brian and this is the Moto G8 Power. Much different than last time around, the leaks point to the G8 Power actually being much more competent than the G8, which is why I think it's the closer successor to the regular G7. The design is quite a stark departure from the regular G7 line. We now have a plastic back instead of glass, which in my opinion is a step back, as it makes the device feel much less premium. I get this for saving cost, but they could do it last time around, so why go back to plastic? At least it doesn't feel that cheap, even if it's a fingerprint magnet. But you can work against this with the included case. The frame is still made from metal though, and the buttons are now much more stiff. Way better than the rattling ones we had before. The phone is also still water repellent, not resistant, and has support for 2 SIMs, but not at the same time as a microSD card. The fingerprint sensor in the Motorola logo is fine. The front now has even more screen with less bezel, and the Motorola logo on the chin is finally gone. Together with the punch-hole camera, this gives the front a very modern look. And the 6.4-inch display is also not half bad. Colors are good and it gets bright enough. It could be a bit dimmer for darker environments though. It's also plenty sharp thanks to its full HD resolution. The MIDI experience is overall very good on the G8 Power thanks to the good stereo speakers that have returned. And if you prefer listening to audio on headphones, you're covered there too. What is important to mention is that the G8 Power neither has NFC for Google Pay nor 5 GHz Wi-Fi support, both of which I find absolutely questionable omissions. And I normally don't mention call quality in my videos because it's mostly fine on every phone, but I consistently had trouble understanding the person on the other end with this one. Let's go back to positives for a bit. Moto's fork of Android is among my favorite around. This phone of course already runs Android 10 and it's very close to stock with only some small and useful additions, like the ambient display, gestures for the camera and flashlight, and automatic silencing when putting the phone face down. The gesture navigation is taken straight from Android 10 and you know I don't prefer it. Motorola has also made it impossible to use third-party launchers with the gesture navigation, which is dumb. Still, the software is a main selling point of this phone. As I said before, there's just nothing to say against smart features and solid performance without bloat. Speaking of performance, the Snapdragon 665 paired with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage is a slight step up. Performance is great overall with pretty quick app loading and fluid animations, but there are still some small stutters in the UI sometimes. When switching between apps, it's an overall very enjoyable experience though. And what an enjoyable experience the battery life is. This is the best battery life I've ever seen on an Android phone, and by a wide margin. 2-digit screen on time numbers are no problem. I got over 10 with my mix of messaging, video watching, and browsing. I consistently managed to get through 2 to 3 full days of use with this phone, and that's amazing. Even with heavy use, you should only need to charge it every second day. Only the iPhone could match this for me so far. And charging the 5000 mAh battery also doesn't take too long with the included turbo power adapter, only about 1.5 hours. And the phone is also not especially thick and heavy. Lastly, the camera. The G8 Power now has double the sensors of the G7. A main 16 megapixel sensor and 2 8 megapixel secondary ones. One is a 2x zoom, the other is a wide angle. The fourth camera takes 2 megapixel macro shots. In good light, pictures are pretty good. That goes for all cameras. Good colors and sharpness, for the price there's really nothing to complain. Especially since you get so much flexibility, also with the cool macro shots. In worse light, this goes downhill quite quickly though. More so for the secondary sensors, which struggle with the shadows even under okay conditions. In dimly lit rooms, colors suffer, and at night it's next to unusable thanks to the missing night mode. That's something I didn't have for a while. Selfies are very good though, with great bokeh and very natural colors. I was actually quite impressed. The G8 Power does record 4K video as well. What can I say? The G8 Power is a very solid phone for about 200 euros. The performance is good, the design modern, you get Motorola's great software, a camera that is good at least in good light, and of course the best battery life around. But still I can't help but wonder why they left out some very essential things like 5 GHz Wi-Fi or NFC, and why they went for a plastic construction. I hope that Motorola understands that leaving these things out really isn't worth the small savings it generates. If you don't take a lot of calls though, there's really no reason not to recommend the G8 Power. It's a very solid mid-range phone for 2020, and again, the battery life is just nuts. Thanks to Motorola for the G8 Power review unit. If you want to buy one, you can do that through the link in the video description. That would help me out tremendously. If you enjoyed this video, you know which buttons to press, and don't forget to press that follow button on Twitter. I'm Brian, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.